Hello, and welcome to another Keepin' It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, and for the month of December, we're going to be focused on putting 2020 in the rearview mirror as we prepare to enter 2021. I don't know about you, but I'm almost afraid to confess how much I want 2020 to be over with because no sooner than I kicked 2019 to the curb, 2020 brought a whole new level of crazy to my doorstep. I have so many mixed emotions about 2020 that I don't even know where to begin. Have you ever felt that way at any time this year? For example, the year clearly started out in ways I never imagined. First, by losing my father the day before Valentine's Day. It was only a few days before he passed that I felt compelled to sit down and write out what I would say at his funeral without having the slightest idea that I would be reading those words sooner than I ever dreamed. Then there was the huge hit I took to my business by losing about $20,000 from 2 contracts that were canceled because COVID-19 was just taking off, and I typically work with my clients on site. Shortly after that, my mother fell, broke her ankle, and was wheelchair bound until just recently, when she was finally allowed to begin walking again 5 months after her fall. Can you imagine how much more agonizing it must have been for her to grieve my father during a pandemic and never even have friends and loved ones to the house to comfort her? Can you imagine not even being able to escape a deep sense of loss, even for a little bit, by taking a walk around the block? And speaking of walking around the block, whenever I take my afternoon walks these days, I remember how excited I was just to walk up and down my own street after an unexpected hip replacement surgery. In remembrance of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I'm really grateful to just feel safe walking anywhere. All these major life events happened within the first 6 months of the year. And I will tell you that I've experienced some dark days in 2020, like many, if not all of you, at one point or another. And now that we're about to close this chapter in our lives, I am still able to be thankful for this year because my father is no longer laboring for every breath, and that makes me smile. I more than recovered the money I had lost from those 2 contracts several times over with just one client that I gained a couple of months ago. And that makes me pinch myself occasionally as I smile. Mom is relocating to a place where she can have the company and care she needs to safely thrive while this pandemic rages on. No, it's not an ideal situation, but at least I know she'll be safe, and that makes me smile. Although I won't be doing triathlons anytime soon, I'm almost back to beating my own time walking 4 miles, and that makes me smile. And I've never felt more fulfilled in my work as a diversity, inclusion, and belonging consultant and coach, because I'm blessed to pursue my passion as my profession, and that makes me smile. Yes, in spite of it all, I am grateful for this year. Partly because I'm still here, and partly because I learned through the adversities of 2020 that I'm more resilient than I thought. And so are you. Part of what makes us resilient is accepting responsibility and being disciplined about doing what it takes to keep showing up. And being gracious enough with ourselves and others to accept that sometimes showing up is the real priority. And showing up well is an option, although it's not an option to be abused. As a recovering perfectionist, I allow myself to really be comfortable with showing up to a Zoom meeting as is because it was all I had to give. And the best part was realizing that the world wouldn't fall apart just because I wasn't wearing lipstick and lashes. In our first nSanity Check with Dr. Anita podcast for December, Eloy, Sade, Adrian, and I will be talking about the 3 things we found to be top of the line crazy in 2020. Then in our second show, we're going to share from our own personal experiences how we make it through to the other side of crazy and our most insightful realizations. So let me ask, what have you realized about 2020? For starters, I hope you'll agree that seeing 2020 in the rearview mirror lessens its expanse, especially the further away we get from it. Not because we're running from anything, but because we're moving towards something else, our future state of being. As I've said in an earlier podcast, we can change our frame, which is the way we see things. We can change our focus, which are the things we choose to look at. And we can change our future, which is the outcome we get based on the actions we take. To effectively change your frame, change your focus, and change your future requires reflection. And a key benefit of reflection is the ability to empty old mental recordings out of our heads that no longer serve us and make room for new narratives that will get us where we want to go. Sometimes that requires getting help. Professional help. When I was at my lowest point between my father's passing, the uncertainty around my business, my mother's fall, my own surgery, and the killing of George Floyd, which sparked a new level of urgency in our country, already reeling with uncertainty, there were times I literally did not want to go on. Then I was given the chance to work through my inner turmoil by engaging in talk therapy. I still don't really remember how the opportunity presented itself, but I jumped at it. Initially, I thought that perhaps I needed to work with a woman of color who could understand me best. But as I found, Black therapists are extremely hard to find. After meeting Nicole, a white marriage and family therapist, my experience with her made it clear that a deep connection and understanding doesn't necessarily have to come in the form of a woman of color in order for me to be served well in pursuit of my mental health and wellness. And I can't wait for you to meet Nicole during my real conversations with Dr. Anita at the end of the month. We're going to share some tips and tools that will get you prepared to tell 2021 to just bring it. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.